So, how do you take ancient sacred texts, words that have literally shaped civilizations, and make them work in the super fast paced visual world of social media? I mean, that's a huge challenge, right? You're trying to balance reverence with reach. Today, we're going to dive into one creator's very specific and honestly fascinating answer, a detailed playbook for turning scripture into compelling digital content. So, what does it really take to do this the right way? To do it responsibly and effectively? We're about to walk through a real-world set of guidelines, a creator's own internal rulebook that lays out everything from the on-screen visuals to the exact words used in translation. So let's start with the foundation. All right, first up, the guiding principles. Before we even get into the nuts and bolts of making a video, this playbook sets up a core philosophy. It's a structured approach that really is the foundation for every single creative choice that follows. And the main idea here is that all this structure, it isn't a limitation, it's actually a safeguard. The whole point of following a precise step-by-step workflow is to maintain the integrity of the original text, all while making its message crystal clear for a modern audience. And the process itself? It's incredibly methodical. It's a repeatable four-step formula for every single video. First, you introduce the passage. Then, you state the specific verse and what it means. Then, and this is crucial, you have to display the verse right there on the screen so the viewer can read it for themselves, and only then can you start any analysis. It makes sure the original text always comes first. Even the smallest details here are really significant. The playbook is explicit. You have to always call the material by its proper name, the Quran. It's not just the text or the source. This rule makes sure the analysis is always grounded, constantly reminding the viewer exactly what the context is. But this playbook goes way beyond just the words. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you show. So this next section is dedicated entirely to the visual rules, and these are arguably the most strict of them all. In fact, the source document points to what it calls a very important situation. So among all of the visual guidelines, there is one, just one, that stands above all the others as the single unbreakable rule. And here it is. The playbook states, in no uncertain terms, that there is to be no visual depiction of God. The reasoning is purely theological, that God is unique and incomparable, and so any attempt to capture that in an image or a symbol would be, well, fundamentally wrong and inappropriate. And I really can't overstate how serious this rule is. It's not just about avoiding, say, human-like figures. The playbook explicitly forbids even abstract or symbolic stuff like using a sun or a beam of light. The only acceptable visual approach is no visual representation at all. Period. Beyond that one absolute rule, there are also some really strict requirements for how text is presented. To make sure everything is completely clear and transparent for you, the viewer, every single verse that's mentioned must be displayed on screen with its full translated text, the chapter or surah name, and the precise verse number. No exceptions. Okay, so we've got the content structure and the visual rules all set. Now we get to one of the most challenging parts of this whole process, language. I mean, how do you translate complex, ancient ideas for a global audience that might not have any of the background context? Well, understanding the target audience is absolutely crucial here. The playbook is very specific, that the content is designed primarily for a non-Muslim audience, and that one fact drives every single decision about word choice and translation. It's all about prioritizing clarity for newcomers over jargon for insiders. Now, this leads to a fascinating principle. You might think for a new audience that you'd simplify the language as much as possible, right? But this playbook argues for the complete opposite. It actually tells the creator to use precise religious terminology, to choose words that carry a deeper theological meaning, even if they're a little less common. And this is a perfect example from the source itself. For the phrase, "we worship only you," an everyday translation might use a word like dependence, but the playbook says, nope, that's too shallow. It mandates using the word surrender because it does a much better job of capturing the theological concept of total submission, which is a much more powerful and specific idea. And to make the content as accessible as humanly possible, the playbook demands complete immersion. So if the video's target language is English, then everything, the narration, the on-screen text, every single word has to be in English. No original Arabic or Turkish words should be left in, because that might just confuse a new viewer. So the video is now fully produced. The structure is sound, the visuals are respectful, the language is precise. The final piece of the puzzle is packaging it all up for distribution on a massive global platform. Right. So this last section of the playbook shifts from content creation to content strategy. See, it's not enough to just make a great video. You have to prepare it specifically for the YouTube algorithm so that the global audience it's intended for can actually find it. And this brings us to the final actionable checklist. For every single video, the creator has to deliver a very specific package that's designed for the platform. 3 different titles, so you can test them, a clear summary for the description box, and exactly 10 powerful hashtags to maximize visibility and reach the right people. So when you step back and look at all of these rules together, the content flow, the absolute visual bands, the very precise language choices, and the modern digital packaging, what you're really seeing is a comprehensive blueprint. It's a system that's been designed from the ground up to communicate sacred ideas with respect, clarity, and real effectiveness in the 21st century. And this all raises a final, pretty provocative thought. This playbook is incredibly prescriptive. It guides pretty much every creative choice. So the big question is, when you're dealing with sacred material, does a rigid system like this actually enhance the message by protecting its integrity, or does it ultimately limit the creator's artistic and expressive freedom? Something to think about.